So imagine you're working like 60 hours a week for 40 years.
Oh, wow. That sounds exhausting right off the bat.
Right. But you do it because you're doing everything you were told to do.
Yeah.
You buy the big impressive house, you get the fancy job title,
Yeah.
you lease the luxury car, and then you wake up at age 65, you look around at all your stuff, and you just realize you feel completely, deeply empty.
That is, well, it's a terrifying thought.
It really is. But it's actually the reality for an alarming number of people today. People who just spend their whole lives chasing this like culturally manufactured version of success.
Absolutely.
So today we are tearing down the illusion of that scoreboard.
Oh.
Welcome everyone. You are joining us here on English Refined. I am Speaker 1, your host.
And I'm Speaker 2. It is always great to be here.
Great to have you. So today's deep dive into our sources is tackling a massive topic.
Yeah.
We are looking at how we think about money, the crush and pressure to look successful, and, well, how to build a life that feels genuinely rich, not just rich on paper.
Yeah, and that scenario you just described, waking up at 65, surrounded by empty achievements, that is exactly why this topic is so critical.
Right.
Because we spend decades of our lives trading our very limited time and energy for money, but we almost never stop to look at the psychology underneath it all.
Yeah, we just keep running on the treadmill. So we're going to look closely at the mental walls we build around our finances today.
Exactly. The difficult conversations we avoid, and even the physical toll of pushing too hard in a system that always demands more.
But, we're not just going to talk about feelings today. We are definitely going to dig into the actual mechanics of financial freedom later on. Simple math.
Oh, for sure. Practical steps.
But first, I want to throw a question out to you, the listener. Think about the last time you checked your bank balance.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Did you feel like a physical response in your body? A tightening in your chest, maybe? Or maybe a rush of relief?
It's crazy how a simple digital number on a screen turns into a report card for your whole life.
It really is. If the number is low, you don't just think, oh, I need to adjust my budget.
Right. The internal voice says, I'm not smart enough, or I'm falling behind.
Exactly. We see someone online with this huge kitchen and a luxury car, and we just automatically assume they know some secret about life that we don't.
Which is usually not true at all.
Not at all. So I want to unpack this illusion right out of the gate. Based on the research in our stack today, how did we get here? How did money become the ultimate measure of our value as human beings?
Well, to understand that, we actually have to separate the technical definition of success from the cultural version of it.
Okay, break that down for me.
So if you look at the most basic clinical definition in the sources, success is simply meeting a defined range of expectations. That's it.
Just hitting a goal.
Right. It's totally neutral.
Right.
If your goal is to successfully bake a loaf of bread and you pull a baked loaf out of the oven, you are successful.
Okay, that makes sense. Simple.
But modern culture has kind of hijacked that neutral definition. It heavily tied it to materialism, visible things.
And by visible, you mean things that we can easily show off to strangers.
Precisely. Because we live in these massive, complex societies now. We don't live in small villages where everyone knows us.
Right.
So we rely on visual shortcuts to show our status to people. A shiny watch or a fancy zip code is a really fast, visible signal.
It's like wearing a name tag that says, I am important.
Exactly. And the sources draw a very sharp line here between external success and internal success.
Okay, let's talk about the difference there.
So external success is the stuff the world can verify. The salary, the job title, the size of your house.
The stuff you can put on a resume or Instagram.
Yeah. But internal success is completely invisible to the market. It's your baseline happiness, the quality of your close relationship.
Your sense of peace.
Yes. Your alignment with your own personal values.
But the problem is, the world doesn't reward internal success. Like, nobody gets a trophy for having a really peaceful Tuesday afternoon,
Right. And because those external markers get so much social validation, people pour all their energy into chasing them.
Which leads to that core tragedy we mentioned earlier.
Yes. The research highlights this perfectly. People often spend their whole lives climbing a ladder, exhausting themselves, only to reach the top and realize the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Leaning against the wrong wall. That is such a powerful image.
It really is. They get the external success, but because they ignored the internal stuff, the victory feels empty. They have the symbols of wealth, but they don't actually feel wealthy.
And, I think the modern internet has basically put that ladder on a global broadcast.
Oh, absolutely.
We aren't just climbing anymore. We're constantly looking over our shoulders to see how fast everyone else is climbing their
It's
ladders.
the social media comparison trap.
Yeah. The sources talk a lot about this. The psychology is fascinating. I mean, I could be having a perfectly happy Saturday morning, drinking my coffee, feeling fine. Then I open an app. And within 3 seconds, I'm watching some 23-year-old tech guy giving a tour of his second vacation home.
And instantly you feel terrible.
Instantly. My happiness just evaporates. I feel like an absolute failure. But my reality hasn't changed at all. My bank account is exactly the same.
But your perception of your own success is shattered.
Exactly. Why does our brain do that?
Well, you're experiencing a cognitive distortion. It's caused by asymmetrical information.
Meaning we don't have all the facts.
Right. What you are seeing is a highly edited highlight reel of someone else's life, but you are comparing their peak artificial moment to the messy, unedited, behind-the-scenes reality of your own life.
Apples to oranges.
Exactly. And the real danger of this constant upward comparison is that it makes our ordinary everyday progress completely invisible.
Give me an example of that. What do you mean by ordinary progress?
Think about the basic responsibilities of being an adult. Paying your rent on time every month, showing up for a friend who is going through a hard time.
Getting through a stressful work week without yelling at anyone.
Yes, or just raising a child to be kind. These are huge, difficult achievements. They require massive amounts of resilience.
But because they aren't glamorous, we don't count them.
Right. They don't look good with a filter on a screen, so we dismiss them as just, the baseline requirements of surviving.
And so we end up feeling unsuccessful, even when we are holding a really complex life together beautifully.
It's a brutal mental trick we play on ourselves. We literally delete our own achievements from the scoreboard.
Okay, but let me challenge this a bit, because logically we know money is just numbers. It's just a tool we invented to trade things.
Sure.
So why does the emotional sting of not having enough feel so deeply personal? Like, why does a low bank balance feel like a judgment on our actual intelligence?
That's a great question.
It feels like we're trapped in a video game, right?
Society only cares about the high score on the screen. It totally ignores whether the player is actually having fun playing the game. Yeah, if you have the high score, you're a genius. If you don't, you're a loser.
Exactly. Why do we feel that so deeply?
Well, that video game analogy is highly accurate for how modern capitalism works. And the reason money feels like a judgment is because, over the last century, money has turned from a practical resource into an emotional identity.
Emotional identity.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a purely functional economy, money is just a tool to buy food and shelter. But in an advanced consumer economy, money becomes the main way we measure respect and dignity.
Ah, I see.
When a society heavily rewards visible wealth with respect, the human brain learns a very dangerous lesson. It thinks, if wealth equals respect, then a lack of wealth must equal a lack of worth.
Wow. So the number in the bank account stops being a tool.
Yeah.
It becomes a measure of your value as a human being.
Exactly. The financial becomes existential.
It's no longer, I don't have enough money to buy that car.
Mhm.
It becomes, I am not the kind of person who deserves that car.
Yes. And once money is tied to your self-worth like that, dealing with it practically becomes an emotional minefield.
Which is exactly why managing money is so hard for people.
Precisely. It transitions us perfectly into the psychological barriers detailed in the sources, the mental walls we build around our money.
Those mental walls are so interesting to me because there's this massive gap between our logical brains and our emotional behaviors.
Oh, completely.
Logically, the rules of personal finance are super simple. Don't spend more than you earn. Save some money. Invest the rest. An 8-year-old can do the math.
It's addition and subtraction.
Right. Yet you have brilliant, highly educated adults who will physically flinch at the thought of logging into their banking app.
Yeah, they will literally let unopened bills pile up on the kitchen counter for months.
So what is happening in the brain when someone actively avoids looking at their financial reality?
The psychology sources in our stack are very clear on this. Financial avoidance is not a character flaw.
It's not just laziness.
Not at all. It is a fundamental evolutionary coping strategy. When you tie money to your self-worth, checking a low bank balance isn't math anymore. It's an emotional threat.
It triggers real shame or fear.
Exactly. And the brain is hardwired to avoid pain. The amygdala, that's the part of the brain that handles threats and the fight or flight response, it doesn't really know the difference between a physical threat like a tiger and a psychological threat like a late credit card bill.
So your brain literally thinks the bill's going to eat you.
Basically, yes. When looking at your finances causes acute psychological pain, your brain protects you. It tells you to look away.
It just numbs you out.
Right. It says if we don't look at the bank statement, the threat doesn't exist right now.
It's the whole ostrich burying its head in the sand thing,
Yeah.
which gives you immediate relief, but obviously guarantees the problem will get worse in the background.
Exactly. But the sources point out that this avoidance isn't just about the money itself, it's about the context the person is in.
Right. There's this concept in the sources called the scarcity stack. Can you unpack that? Because it seems to explain why so many people feel completely stuck.
Sure, so scarcity usually just means a lack of money. But psychologists found that humans rarely experience just one type of scarcity at a time.
Okay, so what else is stacking up?
The scarcity stack happens when you have multiple deficits at once. You aren't just lacking money, you are lacking time because you work 2 jobs.
And you're lacking sleep because you're anxious.
Yes, you're lacking emotional energy because you're constantly stressed. When all these deficits stack up, they create a massive cognitive load. They drain your brain's battery.
So your brain is basically a computer running too many background programs, and the battery is dying.
That is the perfect way to look at it. Researchers call this a bandwidth tax.
Bandwidth tax, I like that term.
And when you are under a severe bandwidth tax, your brain fundamentally changes how it processes time. It triggers something called present bias.
What does that mean for the listener?
It means that because surviving today is so overwhelming, the part of your brain that handles long-term planning just shuts down. Your brain hyper-focuses on immediate relief.
So asking someone deep inside the scarcity stack to plan for a retirement 30 years away.
It's neurologically impossible. They're literally just trying to survive until Friday.
Wow. This makes so much sense when you look at something like retail therapy.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if I'm operating with present bias and my brain is screaming for immediate relief, scrolling through an online store and hitting buy now gives me a highly predictable instant hit of dopamine.
And we really have to recognize that this isn't an accident. The whole architecture of modern consumer capitalism is designed to exploit this.
It's built to intercept our stress.
Yes, the system manufactures dissatisfaction. Advertising algorithms are built to track when you are emotionally lowest and then serve you an ad promising comfort or status if you just buy this one product.
It's weaponized dopamine. You come home after a brutal 12-hour shift. You're exhausted. You're underpaid. And your phone suggests a pair of shoes you've been looking at.
And buying the shoes doesn't fix your exhausting job.
No. But for about 10 seconds, it makes you feel like you have control. It gives you a little hit of happiness.
But then a week later, the credit card bill arrives. The shame kicks in, the scarcity stack gets heavier, and the cycle just repeats.
It is a devastating loop.
Oh,
But the sources ask us to dig even deeper into where these behaviors come from. It raises a really important question. How much of our money stress is actually inherited?
inherited. Like from our parents.
Yeah, like are we operating on software that was installed before we even opened a bank account?
Oh, definitely. Psychologists call these money scripts.
Manuscripts, okay.
These are the unconscious core beliefs about money that we absorb as kids. Just by watching how our parents and culture handle finances, we rarely question them.
We just assume they are the absolute truth. So what do these scripts actually look like in real life?
Well, they take many forms. For example, there's money avoidance. Say a child grows up in a house where the parents constantly fight about money, or they are taught that rich people are bad. That child learns a script that money equals pain, or that having money is morally wrong. As an adult, they might unconsciously sabotage their own career or avoid saving because having money feels dangerous.
Oh, wow. And on the flip side, you probably have money worship scripts.
Exactly.
Like a child who grows up poor, watches their parents struggle, and learns that money is the absolute only thing that will ever make them safe.
Yes. So as an adult, they become a workaholic, they hoard wealth, they are terrified to spend a dime.
But they never actually feel secure because the internal script says it's never enough.
Precisely. There are also scripts around status where you believe your net worth is your self-worth, which leads to massive debt just to look good.
So these family scripts run quietly in the background, messing with our daily choices.
Yes, they totally hijack our logic.
The implication of that is huge. It means if we want to fix our finances, we can't just read a book about saving. We have to look at our families and the habits they pass down to us.
Which is very hard to do.
It is. And that brings us to the next massive hurdle in the research. The sheer terror of having hard financial conversations with our families.
It is one of the most widespread phobias in modern society. The data is wild. 42% of people say they are actively uncomfortable talking about money with family and friends.
42%. Almost half of us.
And we aren't just talking about sharing your salary. This includes really important conversations, like sitting down with an aging parent to discuss their long-term care, or talking to a partner about hidden debt, or even writing a will.
Let's focus on the will for a second. Why is writing a will or estate planning so universally avoided? I mean, it's literally just a legal paper saying where your physical stuff goes.
True, but people will put it off for decades.
Why?
Because it forces a collision between two of the most uncomfortable subjects for humans, our death and our money.
Oh, yeah, that's a heavy combo.
When you ask a family to discuss a will, you are forcing them to talk about dying, and you are forcing them to assign a money value to their legacy. It triggers massive emotional resistance.
So people just choose silence. It's easier.
Exactly. But avoiding it doesn't fix the problem. It just guarantees that when a crisis hits, like a medical emergency or a death ban, the family has to figure out the complex money stuff while they are also grieving and panicking.
So the silence is basically a ticking time bomb.
It really is.
But knowing we need to have these talks doesn't make them any less scary. If I know my partner has totally different money scripts than I do, say I like to save and they like to spend, how do I even start?
It's tricky.
Like if I sit down at the kitchen table and say, we need to talk about your reckless spending, that's basically declaring war. Their brain is going to go into fight or flight immediately.
Yes, the amygdala will hijack the whole thing.
So how does the research suggest we get past that defensive wall?
This is where the strategies from leadership expert Simon Sinek come in. The sources reference him heavily here. Sinek argues that leaning into the discomfort of these talks is a huge opportunity for relationship growth.
Really? Growth through money talks.
Yeah. If you can get through a high-stakes financial talk without destroying trust, the relationship gets much stronger. But it takes careful preparation.
I know the first step he suggests is asking for permission, which sounds kind of backwards. Why ask permission to have a conversation you have to have?
Because the element of surprise is what triggers the defense response. If you corner someone in the hallway and start criticizing their spending, their brain sees it as an ambush.
Right, they feel trapped.
So Sinek suggests creating a safe space. You find a quiet room and you explicitly ask for consent to be uncomfortable. You say something like, I need to have an uncomfortable conversation with you. I'm worried I might say the wrong thing or sound harsh, so please bear with me.
I love the wording of that. It's like gently opening a pressure valve on a hot machine rather than just hitting it with a hammer and hoping it doesn't explode.
That's a great analogy.
By saying, I might say the wrong thing, you are actively making yourself vulnerable. You are lowering your own status in the chat, which tells their brain you aren't attacking them.
Exactly. You are inviting them to help you solve a problem. That vulnerability bypasses the amygdala. You disarm them by disarming yourself first.
Okay, so once you have that safe space, how do you actually talk without fighting?
Sinek recommends using the FBI method. It keeps the conversation focused on facts instead of exploding into an emotional mess.
The FBI method. Let's break that down for the listener. I'm guessing it's an acronym.
Yes. It stands for feeling, behavior, and impact.
Feeling, behavior, impact. Got it.
It's a language tool designed to completely remove the word you from the beginning of your sentences, because when you start with you always or you never, it feels like an attack.
It absolutely does.
So the FBI method shifts the focus to your own feelings and the observable facts.
Okay, let's role play this. Let's say my partner has been ignoring our credit card debt. Every time I bring it up, they brush it off.
Classic avoidance.
Right. So instead of saying, you are ruining our future because you refuse to look at the bills, which will cause a fight, how do I use the FBI framework?
You start with your feeling. I am feeling incredibly anxious and overwhelmed.
Okay.
Then you attach it to the specific behavior without any judgment. When the credit card bills come in and we don't open them to make a plan.
Notice there's no you in there.
Exactly. Finally, you state the impact. The impact is that I start worrying about our ability to buy a house someday, and it makes me feel like I'm carrying the worry alone.
So putting it together, I feel anxious when we ignore the bills because the impact is I worry about our future.
Yes.
It has no attack in it. It just presents a problem for the team to solve.
It completely changes the dynamic.
But let me push back a little here. What if I use the FBI method perfectly? I'm vulnerable, I'm calm, and the person still explodes. What if their money scripts are so deep that any mention of debt just sets them off?
That is a very real possibility. And the research says that your job is not to control their reaction. Your job is to hold the boundary.
Hold the boundary. Meaning what?
Meaning, if they escalate and yell, you do not yell back. You pause, you remind them you aren't attacking, and if you have to, you pause the conversation for another day.
So you don't have to fix everything in one night.
No. The goal isn't to solve 20 years of bad habits in one sitting. The goal is just to prove that talking about money is allowed. You are building the communication muscle.
And if we refuse to build that muscle, if we just let the pressure build in silence, the consequences are actually terrible. The stress of managing money, plus the pressure to chase success, eventually breaks down our biology.
Yes. It leads to severe physical consequences.
Which brings us to the darkest part of the sources we reviewed. The physical reality of burnout. We throw that word around a lot, right? Oh, I had a long week, I'm so burned out. But the clinical definition is much more serious.
It is deeply severe. The sources show that pushing too hard, especially for high achievers, is causing a silent epidemic of biological failure.
Biological failure. That sounds scary.
It is. High achievers are really vulnerable because their whole identity is tied to productivity. They suffer from perfectionism. They take on too much.
And they can't disconnect from work. Because the smartphone means the office is in your pocket 24 hours a day.
Exactly. You're never really off the clock.
So we talked about the amygdala and stress earlier. When someone is trapped in this hustle culture with all this money anxiety, what is literally happening inside their body? Why does burnout feel like hitting a physical wall?
Well, when you are constantly under pressure, your brain thinks you are in physical danger. It signals your body to flood your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline.
That's the stress hormone, right? Cortisol.
Yes. Evolutionarily, this is a brilliant system if you need a burst of energy to run away from a bear. The cortisol spikes your blood sugar for energy, and it narrows your focus so you can survive.
But you're supposed to run away, survive, and then the cortisol levels are supposed to go back to normal.
Exactly, you rest. But in modern hustle culture, the threat never leaves. The email inbox is always full. The bills are always due. The social media scoreboard is always updating.
So your body's just soaking in a constant flood of cortisol.
Yes. And over time, chronic cortisol is highly toxic to your brain. It ruins your sleep, it causes inflammation, and most terrifyingly, it actually causes the hippocampus to shrink.
Wait, really?
Yes, the hippocampus is the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning.
So the stress of trying to be a high performer literally shrinks the part of your brain that you need to perform well.
Yes. You experience cognitive decline. You literally cannot remember things or process information as fast.
That is wild.
And it comes with severe emotional detachment. You become cynical, you stop caring about work, you stop caring about your family, and you just react to everything angrily.
So that is true clinical burnout. It's
Yeah.
not just being sleepy, it's the physical collapse of your stress system.
Excellent.
So if someone listening right now is thinking, uh-oh, that sounds like me. I have the brain fog, the fatigue, the cynicism. How do the experts say they should recover? Because usually a high achiever's instinct is just to push through the tiredness.
Which is the worst thing you can do. Pushing through a broken system just guarantees a bigger crash. The research outlines 3 strict steps for recovery.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, you must set rigid physical boundaries between work and life. Your brain needs physical cues. If you work from home, you cannot work in the bedroom. You have to set a hard cutoff time. Say it's 6 o'clock, the laptop closes, and notifications are turned off. Non-negotiable.
And the second step.
The second step is delegation, which perfectionists hate.
Oh, yeah, because their internal script says, if I don't do it myself, it will be wrong. And if it's wrong, I'm a failure.
Exactly. They have to challenge that thought and share the workload. But the third step is the most important for physical recovery.
Right.
Active rest.
Okay, define active rest for me. Because my version of rest after a burnout week is usually lying completely still on the sofa and watching 6 hours of TV.
Yeah, that's what most people do. But watching 6 hours of TV is numbing, not resting.
Numbing.
Yes, numbing distracts you, but it doesn't actually tell your nervous system that you are safe. Active rest means doing activities that intentionally trigger your rest and digest system. It counters the cortisol.
So what does that look like?
It means activities that need a little bit of gentle focus but have zero performance pressure. Going for a walk in nature without your phone, gardening, deep breathing.
Doing a hobby where you are allowed to be terrible at it.
Yes, a hobby with no scoreboard. You just do it for the internal joy.
I think it's vital to emphasize a point the source has made here. Hitting burnout is not a moral failure.
Not at all.
It doesn't mean you are weak or that you couldn't handle the pressure. It means the system you were in, your workload, the financial stress, the lack of boundaries is fundamentally broken. The failure is in the system, not in you.
That is such a critical way to reframe it. But, we also have to look at the bigger macroeconomic system we all live in.
Oh, right. The societal stuff.
Yeah, the sources introduced this fascinating model to explain why whole populations are feeling this burnout and money anxiety at the same time. It has to do with income inequality.
Okay.
They visualize it as an inverted U-shaped curve.
The inverted U curve. I really want to pull this apart carefully because the link between how money is distributed in a country and how happy the citizens are is super interesting.
It is.
Let's trace the shape of this curve. So we start at the bottom left, where inequality is pretty low. What happens as we move up the slope?
On the upward slope, there is a moderate visible gap between the working class and the wealthy. It's not perfectly equal, but the gap feels bridgeable.
You can see the other side.
Right. And economists say that in this phase, inequality actually creates something called the signal effect.
The signal effect, what does that do?
Well, when a middle-class person looks at the wealthy people, they don't feel angry. They feel hope.
Hope?
Yes. The wealth acts as a signal that the economy is working. They believe that if they work hard or start a business, they have a realistic chance of climbing the ladder and getting that success too.
So the visible wealth is proof that it's possible. And that makes people optimistic and motivated.
Exactly. It increases overall happiness in society.
But wait a second. Doesn't that directly contradict everything we talk about in Section 1?
How so?
We just spent 20 minutes saying that chasing the external scoreboard of wealth makes people miserable. Now we are saying that seeing other people's wealth makes society happier because it gives them a goal. How do those both exist?
That is a brilliant point to bring up. The difference lies between hoping for growth and tying your actual worth to the final outcome.
Okay, clarify that.
The sources reference psychologist Carol Dweck and her idea of the growth mindset. Humans have a healthy built-in need to feel progression. We need to believe our future can be better than our past.
Sure, we want to move forward.
The signal effect activates that healthy growth mindset. Hoping to move up is highly motivating. It only becomes toxic when you get the wealth and expect it to fix your internal happiness, or when you think you are worthless until you get to the top.
I see. So the journey of growth is healthy, but worshiping the destination is toxic.
Exactly.
So what happens when we reach the very peak of that U-curve and start sliding down the other side? Because that kind of feels like the cultural mood right now.
Unfortunately, yes. When the gap between the rich and the poor becomes too extreme, the math of the economy changes, and the psychology changes with it. We move from the signal effect into the jealousy effect.
The jealousy effect.
The wealth of the top 1% becomes so astronomically huge, so disconnected from normal life, that moving up the ladder no longer feels mathematically possible. The ladder is missing all its middle rungs.
And when you feel like you can't move up, the hope evaporates.
Precisely. The visible wealth stops signaling you can achieve this. Instead, it signals the system is rigged against you.
Which leads to what?
Widespread despair, cynicism, learned helplessness. People stop trying to climb the ladder and they just want to burn the ladder down. It's the burnout of an entire culture.
Wow. That is a bleak picture. We have internal money scripts sabotaging us, a biological system breaking down from stress, and a macroeconomy that feels impossible to win.
It's a lot.
So where is the hope? For the listener who is feeling all of this right now, how do we escape this trap? How do we actually build practical security in a system that wants us exhausted?
Well, this is exactly where the sources pivot. They move from the psychology of the problem to the very practical math of the solution.
Okay, good. Let's get to the math.
If the ultimate goal is internal success peace, autonomy, controlling your own time, then we need a financial framework designed specifically to buy back your time.
And the sources talk about a specific movement for this.
Yes, they introduce the core principles of the FIRE movement.
FIRE, F-I-R-E, financial independence, retire early. I know this has gotten huge over the last 10 years, but it also has a reputation for being really extreme.
It does.
Like, people picture software guys living in vans, eating nothing but rice and beans for a decade, just so they can quit their jobs at age 35.
Sure, there is a very extreme wing of the movement. But the core math of FIRE, as outlined in the sources, is super logical and adaptable for anyone.
Okay,
But we have to clarify the word retire. In the FIRE framework, retirement does not mean sitting on a beach doing absolutely nothing for 40 years.
right. What does it mean?
It means reaching a point of financial sovereignty, a point where working for money becomes completely optional.
You are unlinking your survival from your job. If you want to keep working because you love it, you can. But you never have to stay with a toxic boss or do a terrible commute just to pay for groceries ever again.
Exactly. It's the ultimate shield against the scarcity stack. You are buying freedom.
Yeah.
And the method to do this isn't magic, it's just simple, ruthless math.
The sources break this journey down into 4 actionable steps. Let's walk the listener through the architecture of these 4 steps. Step 1 is defining the target. Calculating your FIRE number. How exactly do you calculate that? Because you can't just guess a random huge number.
No, it's highly specific. Your FIRE number is the total amount of invested money you need to generate enough passive income to pay for your life forever without ever running out of the main pile of money.
Okay, so what is the formula?
The standard formula is to take your annual living expenses and multiply them by 25.
Multiply by 25. Let's do the math on that to make it concrete.
Okay?
Let's say I track my spending and I realize I need $50,000 a year to live a really comfortable, happy life. Not luxury, but secure.
Right.
I take that $50,000 and multiply it by 25. That gives me a target FIRE number of $1.25 million.
Spot on.
Now, where does that times 25 come from? Is it just a random multiplier?
Not at all. It's actually the inverse of the famous 4% rule, which comes from a massive piece of economic research called the Trinity Study.
The Trinity Study. Keep it simple for us. What did they find?
They looked at historical stock market returns and inflation over many decades. They found that if you have your money in a diversified portfolio, mostly index funds, you can safely withdraw 4% of the total value every single year, adjust for inflation, and practically never run out of money.
Okay, let me make sure I understand. Because the investments in the market are growing at, say, an average of 7% to 10% a year, right?
Yes.
So even if inflation eats up 3% and I withdraw my 4% to live on, the portfolio basically replaces whatever I took out.
Yeah.
It sustains itself.
Exactly. The math is brilliant.
It really is. But I mean, looking at a target of $1.25 million is incredibly scary for a normal earner.
Yeah.
How does the FIRE framework say people should actually reach that number? Because normal retirement advice says to save 10% of your income, which takes 40 years.
Right, and that leads us to step 2 and step 3. These steps require a total shift in how you deal with consumer culture. Step 2 is a forensic tracking and aggressive cutting of your expenses. But, and this is crucial, the sources say you must distinguish between mindful reduction and miserable deprivation.
Ah, so you don't have to eat rice and beans.
No, you are not meant to sacrifice the things that bring you genuine joy.
This goes right back to internal versus external success. If I love specialty coffee and buying it brings me deep internal satisfaction, I should keep buying the coffee.
Yes, but you eliminate the external status purchases. You stop leasing the luxury car just to impress people at traffic lights. You stop upgrading your phone every year. You ruthlessly audit your spending to make sure every dollar matches your internal values.
And by lowering your living expenses, you get 2 massive wins at the same time.
Exactly. First, you lower your target FIRE number because your annual expenses are smaller. And second, you free up a ton of cash. Which brings us to step 3.
Increasing the savings rate.
Yes. The defining feature of the FIRE movement is the massive savings rate. Traditional advice is 10%. FIRE practitioners try to save and invest 50%, 60%, or even 70% of that income.
Saving 50% of your income sounds mathematically impossible for a huge portion of the population right now, especially with housing costs.
It is exceptionally difficult. It usually means attacking the problem from both sides. You have to keep your expenses completely flat while aggressively finding ways to increase your income.
Like learning new skills, changing careers, or starting a side business.
Yes. And you have to actively fight the hedonic treadmill.
What's that?
It's lifestyle creep, the psychological habit of spending more every time you earn more.
Oh, right. You get a $10,000 raise, and suddenly you convince yourself you absolutely need a nicer apartment.
Exactly. But in the FIRE framework, That $10,000 raise doesn't change your lifestyle at all. 100% of it goes straight into the investment engine.
And that engine is step 4, because you cannot save your way to freedom by putting money in a normal bank account that pays 1% interest, while inflation is at 3%. You are mathematically losing money every year.
Right.
So where is all this saved money supposed to go?
Step 4 is investing aggressively and consistently into appreciating assets. The sources really favor low-cost, broad market index funds
Why index funds?
because they let you own a tiny little sliver of thousands of the most profitable companies in the world all at once. It lowers the risk of trying to pick one winning stock.
Okay, that makes sense.
Some use real estate too, but the specific vehicle is less important than the underlying math force that powers the whole strategy.
Which is compound interest.
Yes, compound interest.
Einstein supposedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. It is the concept that eventually does all the heavy lifting so you don't have to. Break down the mechanics of compounding for us, because human brains are good at understanding straight lines, but we really struggle to understand exponential growth.
That blind spot is exactly why people underestimate it. Linear growth is simple addition, 1 plus 1 plus 1.
Right.
Compound growth is when the interest you earn on your investment starts to generate its own interest. Your money starts having children, and then those children start having children.
The sources gave a really specific example of this using a hypothetical guy named Sifo. Let's walk the listener through Sifo's timeline, because it really proves that time is way more important than how much money you start with.
Let's do it. So Sifo is 25 years old. He commits to investing a fairly normal amount, more $5,000 a month. He puts it in an index fund that historically returns an average of 8% a year.
Okay.
The early years are incredibly boring. After a few years, it just looks like he has a slightly larger savings account. The compounding effect is basically invisible.
I love comparing those early years to planting a bamboo forest.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, if you plant a bamboo seed, you water it and care for it for an entire year, and absolutely nothing happens above the dirt. Year 2, nothing. Year 3, nothing. To anyone watching, you look crazy just watering dirt.
Yeah.
But underground, the bamboo is building this massive, complex root system. It's building the foundation. Then in year 5, it finally breaks the surface, and it shoots up 90 feet in 6 weeks. Compounding works exactly the same way.
The bamboo analogy is perfect for this. So Seifer just keeps investing his R5000 every single month. Because he leaves it alone, that 8% return starts calculating not just on his monthly deposits, but on all the interest from the past decades.
The snowball is rolling down the hill.
Yes. By the time Sifo is 65 years old, after 40 years of doing this, his total out-of-pocket money that he put in is around R2.4 million.
Okay.
But because of the exponential explosion of compound interest in those later years, the final value of his portfolio has grown to over R17.4 million.
R17.4 million. That is the hockey stick curve of exponential growth. The vast majority of his final wealth wasn't created by his labor. It was created by the time value of the money itself. He built the root structure early, and the math took over.
Exactly.
To help people visualize how fast this root structure grows, the sources introduce a mental math trick called the Rule of 72. How does a listener use this tool?
The Rule of 72 lets you quickly figure out how long it takes an investment to double in value without needing a calculator. You just take the number 72 and divide it by your expected interest rate.
Okay, let's run the mental math on that. If I have an investment getting a 6% return, I divide 72 by 6. That equals 12.
Right.
That means every 12 years, my money doubles entirely on its own.
Yes.
So if I put $10,000 into that account today and never add another cent, in 12 years, I have $20,000. In 24 years, I have $40,000. In 36 years, I have $80,000.
Exactly. And once you understand that doubling time, it fundamentally changes how you look at buying things today.
How so?
Well, if you are 30 years away from retirement, spending $1,000 on a new phone today doesn't just cost you $1,000. Under the Rule of 72, that $1,000 could have doubled 2 or 3 times.
Oh, wow. So the true cost of that phone might actually be $4,000 or $8,000 of your future freedom.
Precisely. It makes you ruthless about where you spend your money.
But the brilliance of the FIRE approach isn't just the math, right? It's how it actually bypasses the psychological barriers we discussed in the first half.
Yes, that is the secret.
Because if my amygdala is constantly panicking about money, forcing myself to manually transfer 50% of my paycheck into an investment account every month takes a massive amount of willpower. And willpower runs out when you're stressed. So how do we bypass our own brains?
By removing the human element completely. The most successful investors automate the entire system.
Automation.
Yes, you set it up so that the second your paycheck hits your bank account, the investment platform automatically pulls the funds out before you even see them.
You don't even get the chance to spend it.
Exactly. You don't have to make a decision. You don't have to fight your present bias. The system just runs in the background, building your bamboo root structure while you spend your daily energy focusing on internal success.
You take the emotional anxiety right out of the equation. You just let the math do the heavy lifting while you live your life.
Exactly.
Man, we have covered a massive amount of conceptual ground today. From the neurological threat of looking at a bank statement to the societal effects of inequality, all the way to the strict math of the 4% rule.
It's been quite a journey.
Synthesizing all of this, pulling all these different threads together, what is the ultimate thesis of these sources? What is the absolute core takeaway for the listener today?
I think if there is one unifying idea from all the psychology and the economics we've looked at, it is that true wealth is not an external metric.
Right.
True wealth is inner coherence.
Inner coherence. Tell me more about that.
Inner coherence happens when the external structure of your life, how you spend your time and your money, is in complete frictionless alignment with your deepest internal values.
It's the alignment between the spreadsheet and the soul.
Yes, exactly. It is the profound realization that a huge bank balance cannot measure the quality of your character. It cannot measure the quiet, invisible strengths that actually hold a human life together.
Like what?
Like patience, resilience, the ability to calm yourself down during a crisis, the capacity to be kind to your partner during a hard financial conversation.
Those are forms of deep, profound intelligence.
They really are. They are the essential currencies that keep communities alive, and they are completely ignored by the external scoreboard.
I think that is the most critical mindset shift a person can make. Because we live in an ecosystem that is aggressively designed to convince you that you are falling behind.
It wants you anxious, it wants you scrolling, and it wants you buying.
Exactly. So to you, the listener, navigating this modern world requires immense self-compassion. The algorithms will not give you grace, so you have to give it to yourself.
That is so true.
Life is not just a straight line going up. It moves in complex seasons. If you are currently in a season of intense limitation, maybe you are carefully digging your way out of inherited debt, or you are exhausted from caring for a sick parent, or you are just trying to rebuild your health after severe burnout.
You must remember that a slow chapter is not a failing chapter.
Absolutely. You are doing the invisible structural work. You don't need to judge your messy real life against the highly edited highlight reels of strangers on the internet.
You are walking your own path, and you are building your own root system.
Beautifully said. Before we sign off today, we always want to leave you with a conceptual hook, something to chew on and explore in your own life long after this audio stops playing. Speaker 2, what is the final provocative thought we are leaving on the table today?
Okay, I want you to run a mental simulation based on everything we discussed regarding fire and time sovereignty.
Okay, listener, picture this.
Imagine that by some incredible stroke of luck, your investments miraculously hit your exact fire number tomorrow morning.
The math is solved.
The math is solved.
Yeah.
You are entirely financially independent. You never have to trade another hour of your life for a paycheck to survive. All the external pressure is gone.
Wow.
When you wake up on Monday morning with the entire week stretching out in front of you, completely yours to control, what is the very first thing you would choose to do?
I love that question. You strip away the financial necessity, and whatever is left standing is your actual purpose? Finding the answer to that Monday morning question might just be the most accurate definition of success you'll ever find. Keep that question in your mind the next time the scoreboard tries to tell you what you are worth. Your value is infinitely more complex than a number on a screen. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today on English Refined.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Keep questioning the systems around you, keep building your inner coherence, and we will see you next time.